This is Gus Summers, and you're watching In-Show Celebrities. This is the time I take every Monday to talk about some of my favorite films and actors. This week, we have another grand star of Hollywood, Mr. Daniel Day-Lewis. This three-time Academy Award-winning actor actually wanted to pursue woodwork as his lifelong career. But he credits his move to the south side of London, to Greenwich, as his first steps into acting. Constantly being bullied and beat up because of being only part English, he decided to quickly pick up the mannerisms and the accent of the area just so he would be bullied less. Well, he got so involved in with these young men and this environment that he started to get into lots of trouble. So his parents decided to send him to a boarding school. While there, he discovered the three things that he would love to do for the rest of his life: fishing, woodwork, and of course, acting. But he didn't like the school very much, so his parents sent him off to another boarding school. And there, that environment really allowed him to flourish. And he decided to pick acting as his life career. But he would eventually find himself at the Bristol Old Vic Theatre School. The school was started by another fantastic actor back in the mid-40s, Sir Laurence Olivier. And from there, he knew this was exactly what he wanted to do. So he would go and find more parts in television and in films. And then by the early 80s, he would already find himself involved in some of Hollywood's biggest films. He would have an accredited part in the movie Gandhi. Of course, that starred Sir Ben Kingsley, Sir John Gielgud, and that great actor, Mr. Martin Sheen. And just a few years later, he'd be co-starring alongside Sir Anthony Hopkins and that great, fantastic actor, Mel Gibson, in The Bounty. And by the late 80s, he would already have his first Academy Award for Best Actor for the film My Left Foot. And from there, he would just go on to superstar status, starring in all sorts of films, showing his acting prowess and his great range of acting ability. Well, first up is a film that really established him as an international star. The movie, The Last of the Mohicans. He portrays Hawkeye, the adoptive son of Chingachgook, the chief of the Mohican tribe. There's only two of them left. It's Chingachgook and his son Uncas, and his adoptive son Hawkeye. That's it. They are the last of the Mohicans. But Chingachgook, portrayed by a wonderful actor. He was also activist for making sure Native Americans had their legal rights in the United States. It was the wonderful Russell Means. This was his first acting role, and from there he just would go on to do all sorts of films. And his son, the last of the Mohicans, Uncas, portrayed by another delightful actor, Eric Swig. The three of them would be the center of the whole story. They were working their way from the East Coast down to a territory that they felt they would be able to be free, down in Kentucky. So along the route, they're visiting with friends, they're talking about the war that's going on between the French and Indian, and then the French and the British. And they're asking them, will they be joining? Because the British have been going to all the American colonists. You have to join with us, you must join. And they said, it's not our war, we are going down to Kentucky. And you find out that some of the colonists were going to join. They were only going to join if the British allowed them to leave should their homes and families be threatened. And so, as they're making their way down to Kentucky, a parallel story is the colonel who was, the general who was at Fort Henry, his daughters were coming to visit him from England. His oldest daughter, Cora, She is the one who ends up falling in love with Daniel Day-Lewis. Another wonderful, delightful actress that you've seen in so many films. It's Madeline Stowe. Like I said, she plays Cora, the oldest sister of the two daughters. Her and Alice were coming, like I said, to visit their father. Well, going en route to visit her father, they are ambushed, and by some of the natives who are on the side of the French, who were basically double agents, and the leader of the group, another great, wonderful actor. He plays Magua. It was the wonderful Wes Studi. I love him in this role. He's always a great bad guy. He's a great actor. I always love to see him on screen. So he ambushes the caravan with the daughters, and what he was planning to do was to kill both Madeline Stowe and her sister Alice. But along comes Daniel Day-Lewis, Russell Means, and Eric Schweg, and they end up thwarting the ambush. Wes Studi runs away, and so basically there were just three of them left alive: Cora, Alice, and a British officer. Now he's in love with Madeline Stowe, but she just thinks of him as friends because they basically grew up together. And he's proposed marriage, and she's not really interested, but wants to be careful how she lets him down. His name is Duncan, Stephen Weddington. So he doesn't trust the Daniel Day-Lewis because he's a British officer. They're natives, and he doesn't trust them because they're fighting the natives and the French. So the story is that they get through the forest, trying to avert being killed by all the other enemies. They get to Fort Henry and realize that the fort is about to fall. And the general there doesn't want to let the American colonists leave. And what ends up happening is Daniel Day-Lewis aids his friends into leaving, and then the general wants him hung for sedition. And now, at this point, Madeline Stowe has told Duncan that she doesn't want to marry him because he lied to the general, talking about some of the things that he had saw on the way there. And she now is in love with Daniel Day-Lewis. So this is just part of the story. I mean, it's great cinematography. It's directed by Michael Mann. He's done what films that Michael Mann has done haven't been fantastic in their cinematography and their storytelling. But great film. That point is just about halfway through the film. You still got to see what ends up happening with the fort and when they try to escape. But one thing I do love about the film is the hero, Russell Means. Between the three of them, they're highly trained. They can defeat everybody. No one's able to defeat them. In one context, it's sad because they are the last of the Mohicans, so you would want to know what happened to them. But what I love is that Russell Means, the chief, their father, he is, the go-to fighter. He's the one that basically wastes all sorts of the soldiers and the enemies. Fantastic. And I love that aspect of it, that he is a warrior. He's not portrayed as this old decrepit guy who can barely walk. No, you see him running, you see him fighting. Fantastic. Anyways, you'll love the movie. Last of the Mohicans. Well, another film. So he ends up doing all sorts of films, and then he gets this film. It's called There Will Be Blood. It's based on a book of Upton Sinclair. He was like a political activist, socialist back in the early 20th century. Wrote, famous author. He wrote a book, Oil, about a man who's discovering oil and how it affects him and his family and so on. So Daniel Day-Lewis would go on to win another Academy Award for this character. So he plays Daniel Plainview. In the beginning, you see him digging. It's like the turn of the century, 1890 something. He's in a hole digging for silver, and he ends up finding something. And as you see him working his way down, he falls, breaks his leg. And then you see him drag himself out of there, out of the hole, and into the city with a broken leg to make sure he gets the claim. So, just a great glimpse of into the character, showing his determination. And then from there it fast forwards a little bit, and then you see him now drilling for oil, and he ends up discovering oil in California. And so you start seeing him start an oil drilling company. They're digging up oil, and there happens to be a mishap, and one of the men dies. Well, this man had a baby, and Daniel Day-Lewis ends up adopting the baby as his own, and no one really ends up knowing that it's not his son, because he goes around telling everyone, this is my son, this is him, and he uses his son, because he ends up going to different parts of the state and the country and telling people, hey, I can help you dig out the oil that you have. We know there's deposits. I'm a family man. We can do this together, and we can, really make some money. So that is basically the crux of the film. So the second act is really, you see him, building his company with his son, and, going around and finding all this oil. Well, he ends up getting visited one day by this young man. His name is Paul Sunday. Portrayed, he plays a double role. He plays Paul Sunday and his twin brother Eli Sunday, who ends up coming in later in the film. He's portrayed by Paul Dano. So Paul Dano comes in and says, hey, I live here, and we have all sorts of oil just coming up. I just want $500, and you can go, then I'll show you where it is. But that's all I want. I want nothing to do with the family or the land or nothing. So Daniel Day-Lewis gives him the $500. Daniel Day-Lewis goes, and his son go, and they find, sure enough, there's just oil here. There's just everywhere. And so he has to convince the father, Mr. Sunday, to sell him, his land and his rights. Well, this is where Eli comes in, who's Paul's twin brother, and he says, no, you know what? We know there's oil here. I want $10,000 because I want to start a church. So they end up negotiating certain rights. So he gets he gets like some money, and he ends up taking over the land. So you see him, digging oil. You see him becoming, dedicated to this. His son ends up being involved in an accident where he loses his hearing. He can't hear anymore. It's sad. And then you just see him, become more wealthy, and you see how, how he handles the different events and different things that happen in his life. Like some guy comes in and says he's his brother, and how he takes that on, and how when there's explosions, or when there, people lose their lives, or his relationship he ends up having with Eli, there's a contentious relationship there, and his contention between, money and God. It's a great film. One of the things that I wish they would have gone into, there were jumps of span of time where I wish they would have gone into it a little more, because it would have given a little more glimpse on his character. But fantastic portrayal. Love the way he played this guy. I thought he was such a great guy in this film. Taking care of the son, and the way he dealt with people. But it's a wonderful film, and I know you will enjoy it. Well, that's what I got for you today. This is Gus Summers, and you've been watching In-Show Celebrities. This is the time I take every Monday to talk about my favorite films and actors. Be sure to visit us. Don't forget, every Thursday from 1 to 2 p.m. where I host the In-Show, where I bring on all sorts of celebrities and guests to talk about whatever it is they want to talk about. Of course, don't forget to visit us at Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Flickr, Instagram, all those great social media sites. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, Gus has left the building.